Stephen Jones was among the worst sex traffickers the Rochester region has ever witnessed. Among the women he sold for sex were teenage girls who'd come from broken homes, from fractured families, from households where they'd been sexually abused. As one prosecutor wrote in court papers, Jones trafficked in human weakness and frailty and exploited children who had horrible backgrounds, histories, and family lives. These were girls who felt they had no choice but to do what Jones demanded.
Especially when you're talking about underage girls, the law is very clear. Whether they consent or not is irrelevant. Under the law, they have the inability to consent.
Traffickers are notorious for picking up on vulnerabilities. So it's like they can recognize when someone has low self-esteem or self-hatred or just not overly put together. So they see that, and then they may start talking to you and find out that you're coming from a broken home and you don't have the social supports, or you witnessed some violence, or you were sexually molested in your childhood. And they play on that, and then they masquerade as if they love you, and they start developing this relationship with you.
At his trial, some of the women whom Jones trafficked in sex testified against him. One of those who fell victim to Jones was Erica. She was in her 20s and from the Rochester region. We're not using her full name, but she testified at length at the trial about how Jones and his partner, Cassandra Weeks, supplied her with drugs.
So what were you charging per client at this time?
$120 for a half hour, $160 for an hour.
So if you saw a client for $120, would $60 of it go to Cassandra and $60 go to the defendant?
Yeah.
And you would get how much?
Nothing.
And why did you agree to that at the time?
Because I was addicted to drugs, and I couldn't see anything past the next high.
And they ultimately introduced her to heroin, and they kept her dope sick, which means they would withhold the drugs from her to the point she was violently ill, and she would be pleading and begging for the drugs. Stephen Jones and Cassandra Weeks would tell her, unless you have sex with additional men, we're not going to give you any drugs. And it was a vicious cycle.
Another of the women victimized by Jones was a 16-year-old East High School student. She was a runaway from an abusive home. She also testified at his trial.
Can you tell us what he said to you?
He said that he would take care of me if I helped him out.
How did the defendant tell you would have to help him out?
Exchanging sex for money.
So how much of that money were you going to keep versus how much of the money the defendant was going to keep?
None. I gave him all my money.
Prosecutor Melissa Marangola wrote in court papers about how Jones treated his victims. She wrote, "Jones beat his girls. Jones threatened his girls. Jones kept his girls drug dependent so that he could exploit them, using their addiction. Jones had his women tattoo themselves, brands that showed the world that they were his property. Some tattoos were his nickname. Others were the acronym BAM. This stood for one of Jones' favorite sayings, by any means. At trial, the 16-year-old testified about how Jones was once angry with her and insisted that she remove the tattoo."
What was the defendant saying to you at this point?
That I needed to get his name covered, and that if I didn't, that he was going to drag me until it came off of me.
So now you have the shame built up from that, because now you feel like it's my fault. I'm the one that got myself into that. And it's like you are blaming yourself, so you can't even see that you're the victim in it.
Again, testimony from the 16-year-old East High School student.
Did there come a point where you told the defendant you wanted to leave?
Yes.
What was the defendant's response?
He got mad.
And
he tried to push me down the stairs.
Did he successfully get you down the stairs?
No.
Did he physically touch you any other way at that point?
He choked me up against the wall before he pushed me down the stairs.
Each year, dozens of children in the Rochester region are sex trafficking victims. Stephen Jones was just one case. There are others.
If a kid starts suddenly having goods, having a really nice cell phone, really nice designer clothes, stuff like that they never used to have, like overnight. A lot of trauma symptoms, a student who's suddenly withdrawing, who's just having behavioral problems.
If you look at just the operators of hotels and motels, if you rent a room to a gentleman for a night and you see 12 or 15 guys over the course of 12 or 15 hours coming and leaving that room and you do nothing then you're supporting human trafficking. You're in effect facilitating the victimization of these people.
I think everybody in the community needs to get on board. They need to say, this is a crime against humanity. They need to say, it's not because it happened to your family or that family or this group of people that it's not our issue. We need to step up and say, it's our issue. It's our issue. This is affecting humanity, and therefore it can affect us too.